There was a point when I was unemployed. I just quit my job. I had dropped out of university. I was living alone at my grandma's house, away from my family. I was not touching anything. I was wearing gloves all the time. I was sitting in my room eating canned chickpeas, laying on a mattress in my grandma's old house. And that was my life for like 2 months. So I've wanted to make a video like this for a really long time. I've wanted to put this out there for years at this point. I've tried to many times. I've never successfully done it. But I'm gonna go for it because I think putting my struggle out there is very important. I know that there is someone out there that can relate and feels as isolated as I did at the time. This isn't gonna be relatable to everyone. I'm not prepared to do this, but I'm gonna just share my experience with mental health, OCD, depression, anxiety, and how I overcame it and how overcoming it became the greatest catalyst for my growth, and why, looking back now, I am so thankful that I went through that, because it's absolutely shaped me into the person that I am now. A person who seeks out challenges, a person who accepts things that are out of my control, a person who accepts things as they are, a person who sees opportunity in everything, at least as much as I can. I try my best. I wouldn't be this person. I know I wouldn't be this person had I not gone through what I went through, and had I not struggled and suffered for such a long time. The OCD thing it's very funny, because my best way to describe it from my perspective, when I was really in it and I was in that mindset and I was in that obsession compulsive loop. Now, if anyone doesn't really understand OCD, it's not necessarily the keeping things clean, being neat and tidy. That's not necessarily what it is. It can be. What it is just an anxiety disorder where you are trying to control things, and you do so by performing compulsions. You have thoughts that you don't want to think. You have unwanted thoughts, and you try to control them, avoid them, and that can be anything. That can be thinking that you'll get your family sick and wanting to wash your hands all the time. That can be thinking that you've done someone wrong and wanting to apologize, forgive, and go back to the situation and all this. That can be feeling like you hurt someone, or you might have left the stove on and you need to go check, and you need to go control it and double check, and it comes in all shapes and forms. For anyone that's experienced it, they know this, and they've experienced this in different ways. But at the core, it's having a thought of something bad happening, something you don't want to happen, and you try to control it. So when I think about my experience and I look at who I was growing up from the point where this really first started, now I'll just put it out there. I grew up in just a very loving family, loving parents, middle class family. I got put in sports. I was given opportunities. I'm from a small town, so I didn't have a large group of friends, or I didn't have access to tons of different activities, but I had a very normal childhood. There wasn't any poverty. There wasn't my parents are together. There wasn't any of these obvious signs of disruption, whatever you want to call it. I don't have the right word for it right now. I can tell you about who I was when I noticed OCD, and how I changed. And the funny thing is if I try to put into words who I was or who I was trying to be, when I was struggling like this for so much, I was trying so hard to be perfect. I was trying so hard to control my environment and just be this, in my mind, perfect human being. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to not do wrong. I wanted to follow rules. I wanted to not get anyone sick. I wanted to be helpful. I wanted to not do anyone wrong. I wanted to not see anyone suffer. And what OCD did is it set this absolutely unrealistic standard for myself with control and in perfection that just crushed me. I'll be honest, it just crushed me. I remember when I was walking down the sidewalk one time, I must have been about 7 years old. I had the thought, I don't know how the riddle goes, but it's something along the lines where if you step on a crack in the sidewalk, you'll break your mom's back. And that riddle popped into my head, and I remember just thinking of it very literally at the time, perhaps like any other 7-year-old would. And I avoided the cracks. I remember I was walking along, and when I had that thought, I made the effort to not step on the cracks because I was afraid of the chance that it would be true, and that was like the first memory I have of me engaging in these compulsions. For sure, at the time, it wasn't a very big deal. It was just a small thing, but it certainly snowballed into something much worse. I would wash my hands compulsively to try to avoid germs or blood. I remember I wouldn't touch doorknobs. I would wash my hands. I remember I really wanted to follow rules so much. I was so afraid of the thought of breaking any rule or any law. So I would follow everything down to a T, to the point where it was just absolutely unrealistic. Like walking in a neighborhood across the street, I would consider it jaywalking, and I wouldn't walk unless there was like a painted crosswalk. I had all these very specific compulsions that I would do. And I think that is the most isolating part of OCD, is you develop over time, before you understand even there's a problem, you develop very specific behavior that, in all honesty, is very unique. And I remember before I tried to get help from everyone, I remember thinking I needed help. You know, I remember these compulsions got very demanding. My family started to notice. They started to worry about me. But I just remember thinking like how bizarre I was acting and how unrelatable and how unique it must have been. I would look at other mental illnesses or other struggles, and I'd see them as reasonable, as understandable, like people dealing with addictions or divorce or whatever it be. Even like other anxiety disorders, they just made a lot more sense to me. Like social anxiety, it made a lot more sense. But the compulsions that you engage in, they make you feel extremely isolated. And for that reason, I didn't even seek help for such a long time. And yeah, through 7 years old to about into my early 20s, this really controlled me. I had periods of ups and downs, but I remember in my late teens, it got very bad. It got very bad. I was there was specific events in my past that I tried to dwell on and control for such a long time. And I felt like these things that happened in my past were just the worst thing in the world. Like they were absolutely, I should not have done them. I should not have been part of it. I should not have acted the way I did. I should have been more attentive. I should have been smarter. And everything about these events I would try to avoid. Any mental image, any photo, any item that reminded me of it, I would avoid. I remember it got to the point where I would avoid looking at TV screens that had played images of this, because I viewed it as that they were contaminated, that it had overtaken me and overtaken the thing, and it was contaminated. And it's very hard for someone who's not experienced this sort of like just deep compulsive behavior to relate to and understand. But I had gotten to a point where I had avoided so much. I was avoiding my family. I wouldn't even go into the house I grew up in, because there was way too many triggers I created in my mind that I just couldn't go in without feeling just an immense amount of fear. And I really struggled for a long time. There was a period in time when I would just wake up completely anxious, wondering how I would get through the day, just wondering how I would make it another day. It was very hard. It was very hard. But I'm 24 now, and over the past few years, I've taken great strides to change this, to change my beliefs. I remember there was a point when I was unemployed. I just quit my job. I had dropped out of university. I was living alone at my grandma's house, away from my family. I was avoiding everything about my family, my home. I was not touching anything. I was wearing gloves all the time. I was sitting in my room eating canned chickpeas, laying on a mattress in my grandma's old house. And that was my life for like 2 months. And I just knew that I had to change. I just knew that this had to be something I could change. This had to be something that I could get over. I'm just so glad I just hung in there. I took those actions to make the change. And honestly, it took a long time. It wasn't linear. I would make progress and I'd fall back. I'd fall back into old habits and old behavior. I'd get courageous, and then I'd go back and I'd let fear take me over. But sitting here now, I can honestly say that it's just not part of my life anymore. And honestly, if I look at all the things I've done in the past year, I've grown a very successful business. I've improved my health. I've made new friends. I've made great connections, built a social media presence. I'm doing what I actually love to do, and I'm making good money doing it. And it just, I don't see where I would have gotten to this point had I not been through that. And I'm so grateful I had to go through that because of it. I said this about OCD, and I tried to explain myself who I was and who I was trying to be. When I was living like that, I was trying my best to be perfect, but yet I created so much suffering in my life. I wouldn't drink, I wouldn't smoke, vape. I was hitting the gym consistently. Like I said, I had a loving family. I would follow rules down to a T. I'd try to get good grades. I was trying to be the perfect person, and it just destroyed me. It absolutely destroyed me. But then, I realized I could be okay. So how did I get over that? How did I get over that? And what was the turning point for me? Because if there's someone who's experiencing anything like how I just talked about right now, I know what it's like to hear all this and still feel so stuck, to still feel like your situation is totally unique. No one will understand your version. I can just tell you it's not. Whatever it is, you can let go. You can forgive yourself. You can move on from the past, and you can move forward with uncertainty. And those are the principles to change. The reason I was stuck for so long is because I was trying to be perfect. I was trying to make no mistakes. I was trying to script my life and have no risk. I was trying to minimize any bit of risk in my life to the point where it left me no room to live. I was living in a world where it was black and white. There was just absolutely, it was either you you've done the right thing or you're terrible. You're a terrible person. I was trying to control so much stuff that was just outside of my control. I was trying to control the past. I was trying to control germs. I was trying to control whether people got sick or not. I was trying to control just all kinds of stuff, and just far beyond what normal behavior would be. What I realized is that in order to change, I just had to let the thing that I was so afraid of happening, I had to let that possibility exist. I had to allow myself to live in a world where that worst case scenario could happen, and I could just move on, even if it did. Even if the worst thing was, I could still move forward with it. So I had to learn how to expose myself to what I was scared of. That was the biggest thing, and that was the hardest thing at the start. Was I had to, all these compulsions, all these avoidances, not going into rooms in my house, not looking at screens, not touching doorknobs. I had to go out and seek this out willingly. I had to go and find the fearful thing and go after it. And I remember at the start, I would be sweating. I would be sweating, shaking when I'm about to hold a doorknob. When I would look at a TV screen that used to trigger me, I would actually, down to my core, just be completely afraid. And this was such a hard thing to do at the start. And like I said, it was ups and downs. I would go through big phases where I would make progress and I'd go back to avoidance. But eventually I came to a point, and I remember there was a moment when a night that just I think I was drinking. I remember looking in the mirror, and I just remember just promising myself that I was gonna change. I was gonna become the guy that could get over all these fears. I was gonna change my mindset. I was gonna quit being the guy who avoided all risk, who ran away from fear, who tried to control things he couldn't control. I remember I just promised myself, no matter how hard it was, I was going to change. And from that day forward, I really did make steady progress. And up until this point when, like I say, it's just not part of my life anymore. But and I'm so grateful. I still can sit and look back at the way I used to think and the way OCD used to run my life. And I can just genuinely feel so grateful that I don't experience that anymore. That very difficult process of exposing myself to fears at the start and trying to change my beliefs, trusting that there was hope on the other side, like going in with nothing but faith that what I was doing was the right thing. The process of doing that just taught me everything about self-growth, everything about becoming a better person, everything about growing in any other aspect in my life, whether it's business, whether it's relationships, whether it's anything, family, money, spiritually. I've developed this mindset that's just so much stronger, that's just so much more abundant. I remember so many days when I really just felt like I had absolutely no hope. Like there was absolutely no way I could be the guy I am today. If you would have told me that I could have gotten over that stuff when I was in those moments, I wouldn't have believed you. I just wouldn't have believed you. But I have. I've changed. And that's what it's taught me. It's actually taught me how to change as a person, which I think is something a lot of people never really get to do. I think a lot of people, they go through life and they make progress, but they never really fundamentally change their beliefs. They never really absolutely switch. And the biggest thing about self-growth is being able to change your beliefs. That is the core of any goal, any change, anything in your life. The ability, anything you want to achieve in your life starts with the ability to change what you believe. And having experienced OCD, I learned how to change what I believe. So I owe OCD everything for that skill that I've acquired. I've learned how to change how I think and how I act. The way I look at adversity and challenges and fear now is it's totally opposite. Instead of trying to run from it, I literally view it as an obstacle, as a compass, as a place that I need to go to discover more about myself. If something it makes me struggle, if something is frustrating, there's work to be done there. That's just the way of growth. That's the way of a free life. And that's, to me, that's success. If you're achieving and you're pushing yourself and you're creating a new standard of yourself, if you're facing obstacles willingly and you're going in with not fearlessly, this isn't about not feeling fear, but it's about being courageous and acting on it anyways. And that's what I've learned to do. And you know, that's more or less just what I had to say about my story. But I guess I'll just summarize this with, if there's anyone that's in that place right now, and it doesn't have to be OCD, it can be any struggle. You just feel like there's no way out. You feel like you just can't see any way that it can work out. Your beliefs about the situation can change, and it's not what we experience, but it's how we view what we experience and how we use that to our advantage. There's always going to be something in life that can put you down. There's always going to be something that you could get upset about. There's always going to be someone that does you wrong. There's always going to be a rainy day. But you don't have to let the rainy day upset you. You don't have to let the person that did you wrong, you don't have to let them bother you. All these outside events that disturb us, and we call them bad events, we don't have to view them as bad events. We can view everything outside of our control as an opportunity to learn more about ourselves, an opportunity to reflect positive energy on whatever we get, whatever we receive. A rainy day grows the grass. A rainy day, flowers need the rain. A person upsetting you makes you have stronger skin. If a person offends you, you grow stronger skin. Even if someone passes away in your family, or if you lose your house, if your house burns down, as hard as it may be in the moment, there are lessons there, and there is opportunity for you to learn and become stronger and use that energy to put more good into the world. I tried to live the life where I didn't make a mistake. That was OCD. If I can summarize it, I tried to avoid every mistake. And that might have been the biggest cause of my suffering and the biggest mistake I made. I didn't drink, vape, smoke. I hit the gym. I made goals. I got good grades. I tried to follow all the rules. I missed out on the one thing, which was accepting that I was flawed. Accepting that I could be flawed, accepting that I could make mistakes, accepting that in order to grow, I had to make mistakes. I had to mess up, and I had to learn from them. I had to view those mistakes, let them change me. Well, no matter how much you try to avoid mistakes, you will have to go through adversity. It will come in any way. A death in the family, an addiction, your house burning down, if it's not losing a bunch of money, if it's not a mental disorder, you will go through adversity. You can place blame, you can feel upset about yourself, or you can view it as an opportunity to grow. The other side is waiting for you if it is available to you. A better life is available to you. You just have to have the courage to step into it. So I challenge you with love to take a step into that life. I thank you for watching this video. I hope it resonated with you in some way, because it was a lot to get off my chest and I feel good about it. So yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, see you in the next one.